Sustainability isn't classist because it's not like the lower class is perpetuating fast fashion, and most of the things around sustainability the lower classes do anyway in order to just like get by. It's kind of on the upper middle class and upper class to start changing their actions if we really want a change in fast fashion and an increase in sustainability. I always hear this argument going around that the sustainability movement and like the sustainable fashion movement is classist, inaccessible to those in the lower or middle class, and just various things around that line. First, I want to highlight the fact that it's not really the lower class that is perpetuating fast fashion, alright? My $25 buying from Shein or Shine, I don't know. And then cherishing that, mending it as whenever it breaks, and wearing it for years is very different from your $500 haul every couple of months and then you get rid of the clothes just as quickly. One of those is going to give them a lot more money and is what's keeping those businesses afloat, and one of those kind of fits within sustainability because I'm mending and keeping that clothing for a long time. Now, how much you consider being sustainable or what is and isn't ethical when it comes to buying from fast fashion or even with thrifting and stuff like that is very much so a case-by-case basis. My personal thought process is, so long as I keep that piece of clothing for a couple of years, as long as I wear it until it's literally falling apart and unfixable, then I'm comfortable buying from fast fashion because it is within my means and sometimes a lot easier than going thrifting, because yes, thrifting can sometimes be hard, a time sink, and all that kind of stuff. For other people, buying anything from fast fashion is unsustainable and shouldn't be done. And so the only options that you're then presented with are thrifting, secondhand stuff like from family or friends, or buying from sustainable, ethical shops. And those are oftentimes extremely expensive. I do agree with the argument that those shops and buying in that way is completely unattainable for anyone lower than middle or even upper middle class to get clothing that way. However, a lot of people will also hide behind that in order to not take more ethical routes. If you can buy $500 of Shein, you can buy $500 of a more ethical thing and just get one piece. Or maybe spend $500 thrifting instead. Although that really does have its own problems and you're still doing a lot of consumption, at least it is through a more ethical source and there is slightly less exploitation of workers. However, sustainability isn't just about buying from those stores. Things like thrifting, secondhand buying, and even how you care for your clothes are all also parts of sustainability that are entirely within anyone's budget and are already staples to those who don't have as much money. A lot of the things that the middle to upper middle class people are being like, oh my god, I've had to make this huge change in order to be sustainable. I'm like, I've literally been doing that for as long as I can remember. Can't relate, sis. For the entirety of my childhood until this one specific business went out of business, every single piece of clothing that I owned was either from a thrift store or was secondhand from my older sister. Very rarely, usually just for like jeans and stuff that's really hard to find at a thrift store, I would get from a shop. And that's just how we lived. That wasn't a sustainability thing. That wasn't a decision made out of being ethical or anything. That was a decision made because we were very broke and we needed clothes. So that was the option that we had. Even now, I very much so don't like being like, hey parents, let's spend a lot of money. So I find ways to change up the things that I have and wear them in a bunch of different ways. I find ways to mend clothing so that we don't have to buy new clothing. And I still have a lot of secondhand stuff that I get, and I just try to wear it for as long as I can. And now, some of that decision does come from a place of wanting to be more ethical and not wanting to fully go into fast fashion, but some of those are still just decisions that I make because financially, that's what makes the most sense. You cannot claim that these different forms of sustainability are classist because that is what we are built on. We are built on doing those things and being resourceful in order to stay afloat. Now, the reliance for the lower classes, I say lower classes, I mean like lower class to lower middle class and even to a degree middle class, because wealth inequality is wild, my dudes. There is the argument that because you rely so much on thrifting that when people who don't need to thrift start thrifting, that in itself is unethical. However, in places outside of LA, I really don't think this is a problem. Literally no one who isn't in a very big city is seeing this as a problem. And while yes, that can affect those in those cities, most people don't live in big cities. A lot of us live in smaller, different places, in which case there aren't hundreds of Depop girls going in and taking all the clothing, so there's still going to be plenty of fashionable stuff. And also, I don't think anyone goes in with the expectation that they're going to be able to be trendy when you go into a thrift store. So long as you have the clothing that you need, it fits you well, and it's okay enough trend-wise, you're happy. Like, you're all good. You aren't going in there with that kind of expectation. If you are, then that's just unrealistic, and like, dude, you do what you gotta do. You don't get everything. Like, that's just how it is. So I really don't like this argument that like, oh no, but you can't get trendy clothing because the Depop girls are stealing it. It's like, no, you couldn't get trendy clothing before either. You just decide that like, okay, I either have to be comfortable with that, or I give a little bit of money to get trendy clothing and then I take really good care of it so it lasts longer. I feel like that's just such a flawed argument. I don't get why everyone keeps on making it. Like, maybe prove me wrong if these people are having all these experiences where like thrift stores are empty, but like, I ain't seeing this. And this does not make sense, my dudes. Now let's try to wrap up this kind of rambly video, I'm going to admit. I'm going off because I got some opinions about this, okay? So sustainability isn't classist because 1, we already do this stuff, and 2, we aren't perpetuating fast fashion. It's the people who are spending thousands of dollars every year on fast fashion that are perpetuating fast fashion, not the people who spend $100 max. So while yes, some of these more expensive alternatives aren't accessible to us, they're accessible to the people who are perpetuating fast fashion, and those are the people who need to be making that switch. And while yes, if there was a complete abolishment of fast fashion, then yes, there would be an issue of how people with less money would then get some pieces of clothing. That is true, but that's not going to happen. I think right now what kind of the sustainability movement's goal is to downsize fast fashion, or to at least make it slightly more expensive and have like some of the slave labor stuff go away. I feel like those are kind of the main focuses of fast fashion, rather than completely getting rid of it, because that's not realistic. That's not going to happen that quickly, and if it were to start happening, then we would see a lot of other changes too. There would probably be wage increases, meaning that people could afford more expensive clothing. You would be able to tell for a long time, and there'd be able to be changes made in a variety of different things. Maybe there's more donation shops. Maybe there'd be changes, and those changes aren't happening. Right now, fast fashion is continuing to grow. It's not going to just disappear that quickly. So yeah, that's been my very emotional feelings about people's arguments about sustainability and class, coming from someone who has experience with being in those situations. Also, life hack, outlet stores and clearance bars. Literally, some of my cutest pieces are from like clearance bars of like those kind of like Banana Republic. I find like that as like a fancy store, and if you go to the clearance rack, they have like really cheap stuff that's really cute and really well made. And then outlet malls, everything's so much reduced price, and especially if you do a clearance rack at an outlet mall, dude, you're out of there with like so little money with such cute stuff. And that's Leah's life hack for the day. Okay, bye.